I started the podcast on podcasting as well, like after having a different podcast and helping people launch. And I think that might be your route that you took as well. Like you start this first podcast. What got you into starting another podcast and having grow the show?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. It was a similar story. I did from the very beginning, like totally everyone who had the idea to have a show reached out. Oh, can we grab a coffee? Can we talk about it? So I did plenty of that for the course of a couple of years. But if you fast forward a little bit in Philly Who's journey, before I really figured out the how to actually grow and monetize a show, I needed cash, right? Because I had left the job. And so I started outsourcing my own production to other companies, right? Other folks, other media companies. And then that quickly became a production shop. And we had a team of 4 folks here in Philly. We had an office, we had a studio space and everything. Our clients included Comcast, NBC, and Tom Brady's media company and iHeartRadio. And so we had like 5 projects going on in addition to mine. And so this was late 2019. I found myself in a spot where, okay, Philly Who, I had figured out growth. I had figured out monetization. Now I was advising bigger media companies on how to make, grow, and monetize their shows. And that was cool and all. However, I didn't love it that much, doing all that contract work for bigger companies. I found that I was working harder, way longer, and making way less money than when I was doing software, even though the podcast was doing well. The other work, which was super cool, just wasn't paying well. And I don't know, I just wasn't having a good time with it. Well, enter 2020, enter COVID. And like many folks' lives, mine was turned on its head when that happened. And just in the course of a week, all of those production contracts went away. Because like, for example, the sports media company I was working with lost $1 billion when the March Madness tournament was canceled. So they said, okay, we have to cancel this podcast project. So I found myself in a position where I still had Philly Who, I still had my show. That show was still making money, still being released. And so, I could live off of that. I didn't need all those other media contracts, but those media contracts disappeared. And I found myself in a spot where I kind of went back a year and it was just me and Philly Who again. So I said, okay, I've got all this extra time, as many of us did in the first early weeks of quarantine. And I just said, okay, I want to do more in the podcast world. I've got all this time. I'm not going to just dump it all back into Philly Who. How can I continue to help other podcasters? So I said, okay, I'm just going to get in touch with as many podcasters as I could. So it was a little bit different than people coming to me and me wanting to create something, to help with that. It was more, I went to other podcasters, 30 of them over the course of May. In May 2020, I had 30-minute discussions with other podcasters, some of them independent, some of them people who work at some of the bigger broadcasting companies like that I, just in my network that I had accrued over the previous 2 years. Some people who work for startups, just tons of podcasters from across the gamut. And with each of them, I said, what do you need help with? And what are you trying to solve? Like, what are you not sure what to do? What problems do you have? And 30 for 30, 100% of them said, I got to know how to grow my audience. Nothing I'm doing is working. Nothing that's online is that people are telling me to do is working. And I'd love for this thing to actually pay for itself and make me some money. And so by the third one, I was like, okay, there's a need here that's not being solved that I know how to solve. And then by the 30th one, I was just like, okay, universe, like this is clearly something that's ready for me to help with. And I was like, wow, with Philly Who, had completely learned how to regularly and predictably grow an audience, a podcast audience, and how to monetize it through membership, through merchandise, live events, sponsorship, several others. And so I was like, I know how to do this and I can teach other people how to do it pretty easily. And so it was through that Grow the Show was born. And at first it was only in the form of the paid accelerator program. Didn't even think about the free Grow the Show podcast until later on in the fall, just because I really, really wanted I'd never made a course before. I had never made a curriculum before. So I really wanted to focus on getting that right. So from June, got my first 3 clients of the accelerator program, spent June, July, August, and September, just really, learning how to be a good coach and learning how to teach what I know how to do, because that's a different skill in itself. And then, by the time October rolled around, it was like, okay, the accelerator program is going great. We're getting more clients there. Now let's take all this information and let's put it into a free podcast so that we can serve as many podcasters that we can get to discover us, not just those who join, the accelerator program. And so that is the long roundabout way to say, similarly, yes, it was, podcasters need help. And that's how Grow the Show is born.